Mark, today we're going to be talking about our pathway to freedom from our shame with true life experience.
Yes.
So stay tuned. Well, welcome to Breaking Biscuits, the experience. And Mark, we just kind of, you and I talked since our last podcast, and we wanted to kind of continue on with with the discussion that we had last week. It was very, I would call it kind of raw and heartfelt, and I know we got a good response from that. So it tells me there's a lot of men and people that live in this space that we've been discussing here for several weeks as it relates to vulnerability and to shame. Just what's your thoughts today on the subject, and let's just take off and see where it goes.
Last week we talked, and I remember one thing I said was I was acting a certain way, but I didn't realize it was shame working in me, like Romans 7. Is that a possibility to not know? Or is it always there's shame and you just avoid it? Or what do you think?
I mean, from my own experience, I think we know it's there. Human beings are really good, men especially, of compartmentalizing. So because it's such an uncomfortable feeling and the dialogue is so negative that there's something wrong with us, what we end up doing is get this tiny little box, put it in there and put the box away. And we don't think about it, focus on it, and we do our best to ignore it. But we know the box is in the closet, so to speak. And so when the cycle repeats, because until the shame has to be let go, it can't be hidden. So the moment it's released and it leaves, then you really are in a different place. But the cycle would continue if it's tucked away. So if you hide the shame's still there. And then obviously the cycle starts over and you bring the box out. Whatever it is that causes the shame happens again, and it just gets filled with more shame. You put it in a bigger box and hide it back in the closet, and that's really where the cycle is. So I believe we all know that the shame's there. It's just acknowledging it is really difficult.
Do we have this underlying thing, especially Christian people? Do we have this underlying theme that Jesus is going to take the wheel and fix it, and I don't have to reveal it?
Yeah, I think it's that, Mark, but also I think we have the power to fix it as well. And we might say Jesus is going to do it, but we're like, we're literally going to be the one with the will. Because if Jesus did it, we'd do it his way. But we really honestly do it. We try to do it our way, which is in our strength. And to put it bluntly, we try to do it in a way that in our minds creates the least amount of shame. So we try to fix it. Does that make sense? It's a kind of a backwards world that we live in, but the only way to get rid of the shame is to talk about it. And we don't want to talk about it because we think it's going to bring shame. So we end up, I call it minimizing. So
yeah,
if any of you have ever been in a men's group and they start being vulnerable, like whatever you hear, take it times 10.
Yes.
Because that's what the truth is.
Yes.
Because we all are going to minimize.
Soften it. Like, I'm not really that bad a person.
Exactly.
I didn't do this, but I did that. What they're saying is, I don't know how to go to that next level of. But you said a good point. I wrote this down. Galatians says, very important scripture that we don't talk about in church is confess your faults one to another and pray for each other, and you'll get healing. But the faults aren't sin per se. They're like flaws. I call them flaws. Like, I'm dealing with this thing and I want to tell you.
Right. Right.
What does that feel like, you think?
Oh, well, it's the most uncomfortable thing in the world you could ever do. I mean, but it goes back to, I call it image management. So we create an image of ourselves of how we want people to accept us. So anything that cuts across that image, automatically we think we're going to get rejected or not respected or be looked down upon or whatever it is that we fear. And so consequently, we want to avoid those conversations that make us look weak. Or as Christian man, I think there's categories that specifically, we think in our own minds are worse than other categories. And so we think we're going to look weak if we talk about that, if we talk about failure in that area or whatever the case may be. And we just hate feeling that way. We hate looking that way. So we're like secretly saying, oh, I can fix this myself, but we're living in a shame storm, and it's just not possible, Mark, unfortunately.
Mm-mm. I just think back in my own life, like we were coaching people this week, and I just said, like, how many times did you promise yourself you wouldn't do that again, or you make a deal with God, and the solution is as simple as building a close enough friendship, a trusted one. It's not get up and tell the whole church or your whole business group, like, hey, here's where I am. It's about building a trust and a relationship with someone that's going to not judge you, hold space, validate your feelings, and may even say, I feel the same way.
Yeah, in fact, I would encourage you not to share it with the whole group. You're liable to be all over social media.
Yeah.
But, Mark, in my own life, I can go back. I mean, this is a couple decades ago, where I was in the middle of a shame storm. I mean, it was bad. And I didn't know my way out. Like, well, we've been talking about on the podcast, totally foreign to me. I grew up in a family culture that kind of swept everything under the rug. You didn't really talk about your feelings. You certainly didn't talk about your struggles. And so consequently, I was the guy that had the shoebox in the closet. And I just got to a point where I just couldn't handle it anymore. Like the shame was so heavy, I needed a way out. I found myself in a men's group, and I was in another state. It's the only way I felt safe. And I literally cut a business trip short and flew to another state to go to this men's group. I sat in this men's group, and the first session, there's like 12 of us, all there for the similar reasons. The first session was who wants to go first and tell their story. And without hesitation, I was so ready to get it off my chest. I'm like, I just spilled the beans because I knew it was safe.
Yeah.
And I told everything but one thing, which is kind of funny. I told everything but one thing. So even in that moment, I still minimize. And I ended up telling by the end of the week, because it was our weekend. It was like a weekend thing. But even my initial kind of talk about my struggle, I still held back. It's very common.
Yeah. I think it's just, does it like shame just really attack your identity? Like, I don't want people to know I'm a mess.
I mean, it's so counterintuitive because the shame says you're a screw up. So you think if you share the screw up, the action, whatever it is you've done, that it'll basically validate the shame, but just the opposite happens. When you share it and someone hears it with empathy and you realize you're not alone, the shame leaves. So it's so counterintuitive to how we think. Consequently, we don't want to share anything because we think it's going to validate that we're a screw up. But all it does is it validate our own humanity. It validates that we all have struggles. It validates that we're not perfect and that we have work yet to do in our lives. So what? Who doesn't?
I'm convinced that when I expose myself, it puts pressure on you to reciprocate.
100%. 100%.
That's why vulnerability is a humongous spiritual power to me in my mind. And people don't like to sit in it. They just want to move on beyond it. But talk to me about, you just said the first time you shared your story, your place, your space, what did it feel like when you went back to the hotel that night?
I mean, literally felt like a 1,000-pound gorilla jumped off my back. It's the most free I had felt in so many years. I mean, it's like a new start. I mean, shame keeps you from moving forward. And when you share the struggle and you get the empathy back, and the shame leaves, it gives you a fresh start. And the whole purpose of all this, Mark, is you want to learn from the experience itself, right? You want to learn from what happened. You want to learn from the cycle because you're trying to skip the scratch.
Yeah.
And you want to learn. You want to learn why this happened so that you can prevent it from happening again and live your best life and live the life that you really want. You know it's the life you want, but there's something in the way. And I want to say this too. There's no like magic pill or switch. Like none of this happens overnight. This is process driven. And growth is a process. But this is a big first step. You don't take this step, you're stuck. It's simple as that.
Would our human nature be to try all the other steps, see if it works until we make the big step?
Man, you
I'm
nailed
gonna
it.
study my Bible more. I'm gonna go to church more. I'm gonna be more present with whatever it is. Is that a human nature thing, or is that just how we do it?
That's Toby's human nature thing. I did that. I'm sure you've done that.
Yeah.
I think it is. And I think the next one is when you put your toe in the vulnerability, kind of like we talked about earlier, it's hilarious because you're sitting there thinking in your mind, what am I going to share?
Yeah.
And you have a list.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, number 1, number 7, and number 9 I'll share, but not the rest of them. It's just, that's human nature as well, which is great because number 1, number 7, and number 9, the shame goes away for those.
Yeah.
But the rest of it you get to keep. So all you've done is lighten your load in your little shoebox in your closet. My point is just get rid of all of it. Like go to the core. There's typically, Mark, only 1 or 2 big ones.
Yeah.
And then all the rest of it is just associated with it.
Yeah.
But
why would you work on 9 and 10 when you got 1 blaring in your face?
Exactly. But that's human nature as well. It's process. It takes time sometimes for people to open up, and it's a process of feeling safe, a process of feeling the party they're talking to, they can trust, and so I get why you don't just spill the beans. But when you're desperate, which I was 20 years ago, man, I'll tell you how bad it was. On that trip, I was walking through an airport there was a guy with a Christian shirt on, and I, like a stranger, I almost grabbed him and said, man, will you pray for me right now? Because I don't even know if I can get to my destination. That's how much shame I was carrying. I didn't even think I could get on the plane from shame. And all this, I'm living a work life that looks like I got this amazing, wonderful life. I was the president of a company at that time. And it's like, oh man, this guy's got his stuff together. And all the while, I'm like paralyzed by shame.
You shared with me earlier about the illustration of the woman in the box. Because all we can do really is coach people and build a safe environment. Because I think that's what Breaking Biscuits, that's what this podcast is about, is coming to awareness and realizing that there are safe people, but we're safe because we've been there. And we've learned how to become what I needed all of my life. So Toby, we were talking about you mentioned something about the woman with the alabaster box in relationship to breaking open your heart, being vulnerable. What was that? What does that look like to you?
Well, when I thought about the woman with the alabaster box, she broke the box open. She washed Jesus' feet. So the first thing I thought about was there's a sense of, and this might be one of the reasons we struggle, Mark, there's a component of humility involved when we make ourselves vulnerable. Because she was definitely being vulnerable in that moment. She was not supposed to be doing that. And plus she was pouring perfume, expensive perfume on Jesus's feet. But she had to humble herself in order to bow at the feet of Jesus and do that. So I've never seen, and trust me, I've been in a lot of men's groups over the years. I've never seen a man vulnerable outside of humility. And unfortunately, sometimes when we crash and burn, that's what creates the humility. Some people call it rock bottom, but humility is birth when you kind of give up on when you quit managing your image, you just kind of, humility steps in. And when there's humility present, that's kind of the vehicle, so to speak, that gets us to open up and be vulnerable. And then you had mentioned as well, and I agree with you, and I'll let you share, there was another component that she took. You called it risk.
Incredible
risk. How do you see that?
It's incredible risk. Just in that story alone, the lady entered into the home where she wasn't even invited. That's how desperate she was. She ran the risk of being arrested, of who knows what. But what she saw was, I know if I break myself open in front of him, he's worthy of it. What she didn't know is he was going to forgive her and she would find grace. And I think that's the metaphor or the story or the purpose for our talk is when you break yourself open like that, you tap into a realm of grace, because Paul said he gives grace to the humble. You can't get any more humble than breaking your heart open and go, I got this mess going on. I'm not a mess, but I'm in a shame storm. So there is a risk involved, but the reward. So I want to ask you, I'm just sitting here thinking while we're talking, and by the way, if you love this stuff, you're getting something out of it, please share it. Please share it with people. People need this.
Yeah.
And we know it. No one's talking like this because it's too uncomfortable. And that's okay. But what I was just thinking is, then there's components of sharing your story, the who's it going to hurt and how's it's going to expose other people components. My wife told me sometimes you have to tell your story and it might irritate and hurt 3 people in your life, but it's going to help thousands.
Yeah.
And I had to accept that. I didn't ever want to tell my story because it would people who know me know exactly who I'm talking about, but I had to tell my story, and that's what held me back. Was I didn't know who to tell, and I didn't know what to say. I even thought about Toby writing a fictional book with fictional characters, so people wouldn't know who and what I'm talking about and what my scenario was. But that lady marched into there in a place she wasn't invited, and the bravery and the risk she took was well worth it.
Mark, man, when you were talking, there's a really important point that came to my memory because I lived this. This is how messed up it is. We will refrain from telling our story because we will convince ourselves we're protecting the people we love. And the truth is, the shame that you're in is hurting the people you love. You're not protecting anybody, and you're certainly not protecting yourself. But that's how powerful the dialogue of shame is, because it'll talk to you. It tells you, hey, yeah, you're a mess up, you're a screw up, you don't deserve love, all the things we've all heard, played in our minds in our own voice, and maybe somebody else's voice. But then when we start considering about being vulnerable, well, man, I can't share that. That's going to hurt so-and-so. That's going to hurt my wife, or that's going to hurt my friend, or whatever. But the truth is, if they knew, they would be hurt. Yeah. But just because they don't know, you're already hurt them. It's already happened. So it just comes down to, do you want to be free from the shame or not? It's like you just gotta walk through the fire, but the grace will be there. To your point, if you humble yourself, the grace will be there. You will get through it, no matter how hard you think it is. And it could be hard depending on what you're facing, but you will get through it, and you will get through it stronger, better. You'll learn from it, and you will feel a sense of freedom you haven't had for probably years, if it's something you've been carrying for a long period of time.
So we've been talking about the shame storm of the things that we actually do, the actions that we do, which really damage us. But talk about this. There's this other shame component, like, man, why did I do this? It's going to hurt my wife. I hurt my wife. And if she finds out, I'm stuck in this I'm stuck in this middle world. That's what you're talking about, right? Like observing how you made a mistake, but it has ripple effects in other people's lives. It's not just about you.
That's it. That's funny you use that term, because my wife and I call that, we have a thing between us, and we call it the ripple effect. And if you've ever walked up to a lake or a pond, and it just looks like glass on top, and you throw a rock out into the middle of it, you'll watch these ripples just grow and just expand. And they seem like they go on forever. And when you're in this storm, and it could even be a share, like after you share, it does create, depending on what it is, it does create a ripple. So there's different layers of this, Mark, but I think what comes to my mind for the podcast, I think what's important is going back to having that 911 friend. You have to have a place to start. And a good friend will help you navigate through all this. Right? I mean, that's why the friendships are so important, and having that complete vulnerability, because if you do mess up, and we all do from time to time, somehow, some way. I mean, I know, I'll even use a recent event without giving the details, but you and I talked, and I told you just the other day, I said, I've spent the last 2 days reflecting on myself, and I wonder if X, Y, and Z I've just handled the wrong way. And from a relationship standpoint, but having someone to talk about that and bounce that off of and help give you the feedback and all that is just so amazing. It's really true that one of the keys in life of being able to walk through this difficult life. So I think that's the place to start is with that. Maybe it's a group, maybe it's a friend, but you have to, at some point, just start sharing. Just even if it is only the top 3. I mean, my advice is go to the big one, but even if you can't, just start somewhere, because it'll eventually lead you there.
What about your thoughts about, because Americans are notorious for like, okay, I shared, so I'm done, I'm healed, I'm free, it's over. And the truth is, you only begun the process of the healing journey. Right. I want you to speak to that, and I want you to speak to a lot of wives. I think they have this attitude. The reason we get in this trap is a lot of wives, I don't know if they say it, but what they really think is like, if you go do something, don't tell me. What they're saying is, I can't handle it.
Right.
So you're already behind the barrel, so to speak. And so that compounds the, oh my God, I really hurt this person. And I wouldn't want to share stuff. So thank God I'm free, and thank God I have you, but I wouldn't want to share that stuff. So I get that in a real deep personal level. You don't want to purposely violate, hurt your marriage, your wife, your friends. So I don't know. You have any thoughts about that stuff before we go?
Yeah, I think every relationship is different, so it's hard to speak to that specifically. But I would say this: that the relationship you're in, you know what, you know if you're hiding something or not. Let me put it that way. Like, every man knows, every wife knows if you're being vulnerable with each other or not. I'm assuming you're coming from the place that the couples want a deep connection, and they want to feel vulnerable again like they did in the beginning. And that involves some level of opening up. And that's that's what we do at Breaking Biscuits. We take people on a journey of how to open up, and it's an experience that we can't teach you on a podcast, but we take you on a journey of opening up. And so I think each couple has to kind of navigate and negotiate their way through the vulnerability and the impact of sharing, because I go back to the ripple effect. There is a ripple effect. But I would just say to the wives, if you're one that says, I don't want to know, you're basically saying, I don't want to be vulnerable. And I don't think that's really what you want. I think, to your point, Mark, it's, I don't want to be hurt, is what they're really saying, which is understandable. So, these are troubled waters to navigate through. That's why we do the Breaking Biscuits event. We understand that. We understand there's core issues. It's not all surface level stuff. And our whole purpose of walking couples through a journey of reconciliation and healing, and giving them the tools that they can start this vulnerable life, like a reset in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So I know it's kind of not real specific, but it's kind of what comes to mind.
Well, I'm going to leave on a positive note. When you throw that rock in that still lake, number one, there's only so many ripples it creates.
That's right.
And number two, once it goes to the shore, it absorbs the energy and it's gone. So there is a hope that if you can weather the first storm, aka getting slaughtered on social media or whatever it is, if you can weather those first ripples, it will dissipate. Because people are fickle, man. You'll be the subject today, but you won't be tomorrow. Because we're just like we're like the hamster on the wheel, just jumping on the next thing. And that's why news cycles are so desperate to find stuff, because people don't stay on anything. They'll have an opinion, form an opinion, share an opinion, repost, whatever. But eventually, in my life experiences, there's only so many ripples it creates based upon the weight of the stone.
Right.
The weight of the whatever happens. I call them, the ripple effect to me is consequences. So there just are consequences for your decisions, and you're not going to escape it.
Nope.
Especially if you're in a relationship. Because my wife is teaching me right now, she's working up a really cool thing about Newton's third law. For every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. So when you throw the rock in, there's going to be a reaction.
Yep.
But it's only based upon the size of the rock that you threw in there. Yeah. So I want to encourage people, and maybe you can speak to that before we go, but eventually the ripples will make it to the shore, and it won't matter anymore.
Well, they make it to the shore, but they get further away from impact zone with time, which is a big deal. What you don't want to do is throw a stone. This goes back to the 1 through 10 stones I've got to throw. You don't want to throw number 1 and number 4, and then the next week you throw number 2 and number 6. You're just creating ripples that never end. So hence the reason to just share the whole thing. So I think it's spot on. I think it's a great metaphor, and I think it's where a lot of men live. I've been there myself, and it is the hardest. I'm telling you, it is the hardest thing I ever did in my life, was to share the ugliness about my life to someone else. It literally was the hardest thing I ever did. After I did it, I was like, that wasn't that hard. But before I did it, it was the hardest thing I ever did. Men will go down. They will crash, burn in a fire, and clenching on to their image before they will share. It is crazy how we're made, but that is how we're made.
And there is a component, really, you don't want to hurt the people you love, and you know it's going to have a ripple effect.
Yeah. It just, but there's no other way.
But to your point, you're already hurting them, and you don't even realize it.
They just don't know.
Yeah.
But they're hurt. They just don't know it yet. And the other thing is, if you're a Christian and you're like, you truly have a desire to walk and follow God, He will help you. He will help you throw the rock in. He'll find a way that the stone gets cast. Whether you do it or some other way, it'll come out. That's just the way it is. So you might as well be the one.
But isn't that a gift, though?
It is a gift.
It's a gift.
100%. Well, Mark, we're out of time. We lost you on the camera, but I'm going to go ahead and close this out. So this is Breaking Biscuits. great discussion again. And we'll see you next week. God bless.